Not too long ago, Oblivion Remastered dropped, to everyone's surprise, or, well, no one's surprise. It was leaked beforehand several times over, but it happened and it's exciting. I think Oblivion is my #1 childhood game, and I've actually been playing it recently as of the past few months. And then whilst playing the remaster, I've had a lot of thoughts about it. How does the remaster compare against the original Oblivion? How does it compare against my memories of Oblivion? How does it compare against modded Oblivion? And in this video, I want to share those thoughts with you. This is a bit different from my usual videos, but at the end of the day, I like yapping about games and game design. And though the method of communication is maybe more direct in this video, at its core, it's still the same. It's about games and how they make us feel. So here's what I think about Oblivion Remastered. Well, let's start with the most obvious, visuals. And wow, this is perhaps the most beautiful game I have ever played. I'm just going to sit here a bit, take a step back, and just leave the camera pointing in different places. Often when playing games, I'll stop and look and find something that's wallpaperable, screenshotable, you know what I mean? Something that would make a good desktop wallpaper. But in this game, it could be just about anywhere. Any place you go, anything you look at is beautiful. It's so meticulous as well. You can really look down on the floor, look at the puddles, look at the light reflecting 1,000 different ways. It just looks beautiful. Now, I don't have the technical knowledge required to properly explain all of Unreal Engine 5's lighting techniques and how they all work together, even what they're called, but I do know that they are all working together, and they are all really good. Even the smallest rocks have an incredible amount of detail that just dwarfs the largest boulders of the original. A lot of the architectural design, like from the Ayleid ruins and the Imperial City, and well, even the forts really, are all a bit different, but still really match the feel of the game. And they're a bit more realistic too, like these Ayleid ruins, which have been around for, what, 4,000 years or something? In the original, they don't have any kind of moss growing over them, it's really weird. Whereas in this, look at it. The ruins are ruined. Also, the water, absolutely amazing. You could get the water to look quite good with Oblivion Reloaded, which was a mod for the original, but it was always a little bit buggy, just a bit weird. This just works perfectly. And its reflection off of light sources like the sun or the two moons just looks perfect. This may be the best looking game I've ever played. Of course though, there are nitpicks. I share the opinion that I suppose a lot of people on the Nexus Mods site have, in that the colour grading is a little bit off, a bit too reddish or brownish, something like that. Oblivion originally was not afraid to be as colourful as possible. During a clear sunny day, the sky was such a bright, vibrant blue, and the grass was always really emerald green. And that really helped with the really bright and happy fantasy that the original Oblivion was all about. Whereas with this game, the colours are a bit muted. You know how HDR, high dynamic range displays, allow you to have way more colours to make everything more colourful and colour accurate to the experience that the creator of the game you're playing or movie you're watching wants? This feels like LDR, like low dynamic range. There are less colours. The game is using less colours. It's still great looking, don't get me wrong, but I'm missing a bit of the carefree happiness, I think you could call it, from the original. I also want to highlight how different places can look completely different depending on the time of day and the weather. The weather effects are great, they really are. I mentioned earlier about a load of Unreal Engine 5 effects all interacting with each other, and I don't know what those are. It's magical to me. But the different combinations of effects that are brought about by different weather patterns can really create some beautiful and unique pictures of landscapes that will never be the same if you go back there again. I feel like I'm kind of up to date on gaming news and, new games, but I rarely actually play new games. And it kind of struck me as crazy how far games have come playing this game. If this isn't one of your first Unreal Engine 5 games, then I'm sure it probably doesn't have much of an effect on you, but on me it was quite profound, considering I'm usually playing games from, well, I'm usually playing the original Oblivion, and games from that era. Another tiny thing I want to touch on is emissive light, or at least that's what they call it in the Skyrim modding community. With an ENB and some plugins, you can have things emit light in Skyrim. It was an amazing advance in graphical modding at the time, and now I think most mod packs and modders will add loads of emissive light to anything that would realistically emit light. And of course it's just a part of the game in this, so that was surprising to me, and it shouldn't have been, but it was, and it was really nice to look at. It's even been extended to things that I don't think Skyrim modders ever even extended it to. Like at night time, you'll see a load of glow bugs just lighting things up, just little wisps in the air. And even, and this is a tiny detail, Shadowmere's eyes. They glow now. That's really cool. But that's enough about graphics, because frankly, I'm not qualified to talk about them. Is that the right word? I'm not very articulate in my graphical reviews of games. I don't know what all these different lighting techniques look like. I just know that they exist, and they kind of melt together into this soup of good lookingness, right? Next, I want to talk about something that I don't think I've heard people talk about a lot, and that's the sound design. It is amazing. It really is. One thing I recommend doing if you have this game is to turn off the music, and that is not something I say lightly, because it's my favourite soundtrack, I think, of any soundtrack ever. But if you do that, and just walk around the landscape, just walk around the forests, walk down the roads, walk up the mountains, and you'll just hear noises. So much ambient life. If you're anywhere near a wolf, you'll hear it howling in the distance, and you'll know it's there. Ogres breathe, and you can hear them from like 50 meters away. It's really cool. You'll hear stuff like owls at night as well. I mean, the bird song is just beautiful too. It's really worth turning off the music at least a couple of times and just going on an adventure. The interiors are good as well. The cave sounds are just great. And I know I was finished talking about visuals, but wow, look at these caves. I mean, Oblivion has very copy and paste dungeons, but I don't think I care so long as they look like this. Also, the way the audio reverberates from wall to wall is great. If you're in an echoey area, NPCs talking will sound echoey. And if, let's say, you're in a cave full of bandits and you hear them talking right around the corner, it'll sound really muffled, but as soon as you go around the corner, all of a sudden, it just works. The audio works. It sounds so realistic. It's great. Also, the new voice acting variety is great. I mean, a famous or infamous bit of Oblivion jank is the fact that there are only a small handful of voice actors for such a huge game. But it seems Virtuous have hired a load of new voice actors, mostly, from my reckoning, Skyrim's voice actors, which is really cool, to voice a lot of these other characters so that the diversity is way better. They've kept the most iconic voice lines to the original voice actors, but just as you might be getting tired of hearing the same voices, a new one appears, and that's really nice. The quality of the voice acting is actually pretty good, which can't always be said for the original ones. So yeah, overall, audio-visually, right, it is amazing. It's astounding. I think there are some shifts in aesthetic from the original, and I think some of the old crowd won't appreciate it as much. I think they'll prefer that things looked the way they did. And I can definitely appreciate that. I mean, despite Oblivion infamously looking ugly, I think it's regarded as kind of ugly, especially the characters. To me, I find it really beautiful. That mid-2000s RPG aesthetic, that fantasy aesthetic, is probably my favourite in gaming. I absolutely adore the original Oblivion. And with a couple of mods, like Natural and Atmospheric Oblivion and Oblivion Reloaded, you can make it look just astoundingly beautiful in a way that a lot of old games back then just didn't. So yeah, I do love the old way, but I think I love the new way more. I mean, just the pure fidelity of it is astounding. It's even had an effect on gameplay for me, because Oblivion is full of lots of, as I said earlier, copy and paste dungeons that previously I just wouldn't bother going in. But because there's so much eye candy, just seeing that even though it's the same corridors and antechambers you're seeing in these dungeons again and again, I've started to just not mind that. I don't mind dungeon grinding in Oblivion. I don't mind it as much as I used to, because it looks so beautiful, though I'll touch more on that later. Alright, so I've, the past 10 or so minutes, gushed about how great the Oblivion remaster is, and the parts I've spoken about are great, but this is where it goes downhill a bit. Another thing that was changed up, let's say remastered, I'm using the quote, you can't see my hands, I'm using the quote signs, is the interface. Now, I was there with my friend in Discord as the official live reveal was happening, and they started showing the gameplay, and the millisecond that I saw a little piece of the game's interface, I think the first frame of it was just a little bit of a dialogue window where it showed, when it zooms into someone's face. And it was exactly then that I did have my first alarm bell, because the interface just didn't look right. For me personally, the original Oblivion's aesthetic, its interface, was perfect. Just the aged parchment design, the menu navigation, the fonts used. It is honestly perfect for me. I absolutely adore the way the menus look. And when you're using something like Darnified UI, which is probably the most prolific user interface mod for the original, it's just amazing. If every game I played had the Darnified UI interface, my life would be it'd be amazing. Anyway, as the live gameplay reveal went on a bit longer and I saw more and more of the heads-up display and just the interface as a whole, my first alarm bells started to ring, because it looked like an alpha. Like, it looked like a placeholder while they were developing the game. That's what it looked like to me. And I was like, and I said to my friend, I think, we'll see, because the game's about to shadow drop, we'll see, what it's actually like. What does it actually feel like? You can look at a trailer and get a rough idea, but you don't know what an interface is like unless you've interfaced with it. And I was unhappy to be confirmed correct in that it's just not good. The interface isn't good. I mean, it does function. You can use it. There's no the inventory with all the little sections, all the tabs on the top. It's not bad. They moved the all items tab to the right side, which confused me for a bit, but you do you, whatever. It's usable. It's a bit more. It appreciates screen size a bit more than the original vanilla HUD, so there's that. But it's just really not up to modern standards. It's not up to Skyrim standards, which is crazy considering that came out ages ago. I wasn't really a fan of Starfield's user interface, but honestly, I think it's better than this. So the inventory screen isn't so bad. The character screen, not so bad. The map could be a bit better. I don't understand why the map feels like this. It just doesn't feel very good. It felt better in the original as a self-contained pane of the map screen. The worst part is probably the quest log. I don't know what they're going for here. I mean, couldn't you just look at how other similar games handle quest logs and take inspiration from that? Or just from Skyrim? I can't help but think how back in 2011, Skyrim did a much better job at the quest log. I don't know what's going on here. I don't really know what's going on with the alchemy screen. It's bad. I thought maybe I just didn't understand it. But now I've gotten what's my alchemy skill? Hold on. But now my alchemy skill is 65. I've made loads of potions. I feel like I know how it works. And now I know that it kind of doesn't work. It could just be better. If it were just like Skyrim, it would be better. In a way, it's unfair because in my mind, I'm comparing this to Darnified UI, which is a mod. But doesn't UX design, UI design, doesn't that exist collectively? Can't you learn from these mods? For about 2 decades now, modders have been trying to augment Oblivion to make it better. And I feel like the mods with loads of downloads may be good indicators of how to improve Oblivion. And it doesn't seem to me as if they've gone outside of their bubble and taken a look at those mods and tried to learn from them, but more on that later. The heads-up display, I've seen people complain a lot about the heads-up display. I don't think it's too bad. I think it's too big. I feel like, especially in some very modern game engine like Unreal, I'm imagining it's quite easy to implement some kind of UI scaling feature. I feel like that is a thing. But I've seen no way you can do that in-game, so you're stuck with this very chonky looking compass. And for some reason the buffs are huge and in the bottom left of the screen, and there's no timers. Now, I know vanilla Oblivion didn't have a timer for these buffs, but darn UI did, and it really helps to know how long these buffs or debuffs are lasting for. But yeah, they're huge in the bottom left screen. I've already seen there is a mod on the Nexus which changes things around a bit. I'm waiting for, I think, something a bit more comprehensive for the UI before I start downloading mods. And just so it's not all nitpicking, I do have a couple of things I like. I really like the coloured map markers. They're really nice shades, and they do really help make the map more legible. And the second thing is, I'm actually happy they didn't do anything with the world map, because I don't like 3D world maps like in Skyrim. I'm not a fan of it. I like 2D paper maps, and so I'm quite happy that they decided not to go the extra mile when it comes to the world map. Because even though I don't like the navigation of that part of the interface, it's still good. Actually, let's not stop there. I'm going to talk a little bit more about quality of life. Darn UI has categories inside the inventory tabs. So for example, if you go to the Alchemy and Potions tab, it's got alchemy ingredients, potions, alchemy equipment, food and drink. They're on separate categories, which makes navigation so much better. And this doesn't have it. And I've just got to think, if you play this game and you get, what, like past level 10, to the point where you've got quite a dense inventory, is this good? Does this feel good? Like, did they play test this properly and decide that it didn't need changing? Because trying to find my health potions through a huge list of alchemy ingredients is painful. It's really painful. Darn UI had good categories. The inventory navigation was way better. I miss it. Here's some other things as well that modders have done, and even Bethesda has done over the years, that this remaster easily could have done to improve the experience, but didn't. So you've got quick loot, the inventory looting system added in Fallout 4, I think. Yeah, Fallout 4. And it's also in Starfield. Mods have backported that feature to all Elder Scrolls games at this point. I think there's even one for Daggerfall. And I use this mod. I think it's just called Quick Loot, but I use it for Oblivion. And it just makes the looting experience so much better. Some indicator to when books are read or not, or if a book is a skill book, because realistically, I'm not going to go press E and escape through an entire library of books just to find one that might give me one skill increase. And if I'm not going to be bothered to do that, I'm not going to be bothered to engage with skill books as a mechanic. So they might as well not exist if you're going to make it annoying to do that. Now, mods saved that a long time ago. Skyrim especially has some really good mods for that, to indicate if something is a skill book. I think it's Morrowind Inventory Edition does that very well. Should have done that. That should have been a thing. Skyrim and every Bethesda game afterwards has an indicator so you know if a dungeon has been cleared, if you've been there or not. I feel like for any open world sandbox like this, that is really, really good. Why is that not in? That's a tiny little quality of life feature which should have been put in. Another thing, soul gems. I really hate, this is a thing that Skyrim has this problem too. You need mods to fix it, where if you use soul trap, it will always trap the wrong gem. Like, you'll trap a petty soul into a grand gem, therefore wasting it. Stuff like that is really annoying. I really wish there was either a combination system or just there are a couple of ways you can handle it, but something to stop that from happening, because if you're ever into enchanting or just even recharging enchanted gear, if you're trapping any souls, you will know that this is incredibly annoying. And I feel like if you've played the game, if you're experienced in Oblivion, you'll want to fix that, right? You'd want to see, okay, what do other players with their own mod lists usually do to change the game? You know, what are these changes that people really want, that thousands of people have downloaded over the years? Let's have a look at those. They don't seem to have done that. It seems like a purism. It seems like they were taking a purist approach to the game design, but we'll see in a bit that they actually haven't, and they have made some changes, so they were capable and willing to make some changes. They just weren't very sweeping at all. Another thing, completely forgot, this is the last thing, interface-wise. The inspect menu to show the details on something, terrible. I mean, it's not terrible, I'm overreacting. It's just not very good. It's good enough when you're looking at something that isn't enchanted. But as soon as enchanted gear comes along, it just becomes really annoying to press show details and then click all the buttons on the top just to see something really basic. Darn UI, for example, just has a mouse over tooltip that pops up. Just an on-mouse pop-up that shows you all of the interesting things you would want to know about that item without taking up... It does it very cleanly and it takes up very little screen space. So... Okay, so now let's talk about gameplay a bit. They've made some changes. So first off, the leveling system has been changed. Thankfully. Because the leveling system from the original Oblivion, I don't want to go into too much how it worked, because it's no longer relevant, because we're talking about the remaster. But it had lots of problems. It encouraged something that people call efficient leveling, where if you want to level up well enough, because there's a difference between leveling up well and leveling up badly, which is terrible. If you level up badly and inefficiently, your character will be kind of useless at later levels, and you will essentially have not bricked your save file, but you'll make the game permanently harder for yourself if you don't level up right, which is an awful system. Now that's been changed for the most part. Now you level up with something called virtues. It costs virtues to increase your attributes. You level up by the amount of skill ups you get, just like in Skyrim. It's not that bad. It's simple. It's a non-aggressive way of fixing the problems in the leveling system. Another thing that's really important is retroactive endurance calculation is in. That probably means nothing to you, but essentially, in both Morrowind and Oblivion, your level of endurance will increase the amount of extra health you get per level, meaning that in order to get the most health out of your character, you need to level endurance as quickly at the lower levels as possible. Because if you decide to level endurance later on and do your other attributes first, you will have so much less health, which is kind of a dodgy system. Especially if you get to late game, everything starts doing loads of damage, and you're like, oh, okay, I need to start leveling endurance to increase my hit points. It's too late. It won't do anything. You'll barely increase your hit points. You need to have done that at earlier levels, and that's a stupid thing that they've gotten rid of. Now, from my understanding, it's retroactive, so it works the exact same way, but it will also factor in all your previous level ups, which is great. That's a really nice, lightweight feature. There was a mod by, I want to say push the win button. If I'm wrong, then I'm sorry. I'll put the correction up on screen. That fixed that. That's a very popular one. Also, Clairvoyance, a mysticism school spell from Skyrim, has made its way in, where you pop a spell and it will trail you to the quest objective. This isn't in Oblivion at all. This was a Skyrim thing. I don't think anyone really used it too much in Skyrim, but it's a really welcome change. If you're ever lost in... I mean, some of Oblivion's dungeons are very tangled. If you're ever lost in them and you don't like swapping to the local map, which, by the way, completely forgot, one more interface rant. The swapping from world map to local map is terrible. You have to keep scrolling in on your mouse wheel instead of just pressing a different button. Anyway, Clairvoyance is a good add. But it just shows that they are ready to add things. They're ready to learn from the lessons of Skyrim, a future Elder Scrolls game, a future Bethesda game, and they're willing to backport that to make Oblivion a better experience. So it's not on principle. There doesn't seem to be a purist principle with these changes. Anyway, when it comes to gameplay, those are the changes. And past this point, we're just talking about Oblivion. Because even though the game, audio-visually and the interface, all of that is entirely different, completely remade from the ground up, the gameplay is actually exactly the same. Now, there are some changes to animations. I'll talk about those in a little bit. But for the most part, the game works the exact same way. All of the items are in the same place. All the stats, for the most part, do the same thing. They've added sprinting. Sprinting's a thing, but the game still doesn't necessarily feel designed for sprinting, so I very rarely use it. I just never feel like I need to. So far, I've been talking about Unreal Engine 5, which handles the graphical side of this game. But at its foundation, the game engine seems to be mostly untouched. It's running off of some kind of version of the Gamebryo engine or Creation engine, whichever name you want to give it. And it seems that all of the original scripts are still there. NPCs work the exact same way. Stats work the exact same way. Everything that's not graphical works exactly the same. So it's a graphics engine, an incredibly beautiful graphics engine, bolted on to the normal 2006 version of the game. And so therefore, from now on in the gameplay section, I'm reviewing Oblivion, the 2006 version. It isn't any different. It's hard looking at gameplay to understand that it's the exact same game, but it is. It's the same game. It just looks a lot better. And maybe that's all a remaster needs to do. That's an argument. Maybe that's all a remaster needs to do. But from here on, because I've essentially been playing vanilla Oblivion, I've got some things to say about vanilla Oblivion. First off, though the leveling system is better than vanilla in the remaster, as I said, there's some small changes to the leveling system, I still don't like it. I'm still not a huge fan. Honestly, I don't think that these XP-based systems are very good to begin with, foundationally, because they just encourage grinding. There's always some arbitrary mismatch with different skills, with how fast they increase. So some skills, for example Mercantile, goes up really fast because you're always selling stuff, right? The only way you're going to increase some of these skills, especially things like Mysticism, is through grinding it, through spamming it. Is that fun? I would do that in an MMO. I wouldn't mind it in an MMO setting, but in a single-player RPG, in this immersive experience, do I really want to cast the same spells repeatedly just so I can, at a later point, cast the spells I actually want to cast? Is that a good way of handling leveling up? I mean, this is a problem in Skyrim as well. I don't think it's as bad in Skyrim, but it just feels bad. In fact, I actually nearly stopped playing within the first 2 days of Oblivion Remastered because I didn't remember. I wasn't used to just how annoying leveling is in this game. I don't like it. Foundationally, I don't like the way leveling works. Now here I talk about mods again. In the original Oblivion, for years now, every playthrough I've done, I've used something called Oblivion XP, which has this centralized XP system. In other words, you do anything, you get XP. You get enough XP, you ding. And when you ding, you gain points that allow you to assign and increase your skills where you want them to be increased. So it is essentially the Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas system of leveling. Now, I understand the immersive quality of the more you use a sword, the better you should be. From an immersive standpoint, that definitely does make sense, but realistically, through the course of actually playing the game, it just doesn't really work. It just doesn't feel good. So I'd much rather just give up the dream of having this immersive system and just go with, just let me choose where to put my points. Now, there are limits to this in Oblivion XP. So if something isn't your major skill, or isn't tied to your major attribute, I believe, it will be more expensive. So if you never do any sneaking, let's say, but you want to get 100 sneak, it'll be a lot more expensive. Whereas if you are a knight who goes around with a massive hammer, you will find it easier to increase those skills. So it's not entirely, it's just a lot more custom. You choose where you want to place your points as opposed to it happening dynamically in a way that's not really in your control. Another thing Oblivion XP does is there are level brackets, there are thresholds, and you can't push a skill too far before reaching that threshold. I believe it's every 5 levels. I don't think you can get any skill to 100 until you're level 20, I believe. It'll be stuck on 99, and you can't increase it to get that master skill perk. You can't do that straight away. For example, you can't rush to get 100 sneak as quickly as possible, and then you're a level 5 who's able to sneak around. So there are lots of limits in place, but essentially some kind of Fallout 3 New Vegas style system is so much better, and I can't wait until hopefully it makes its way to the remaster in the form of a mod. Another system that's adjacent to the leveling system is the training system, and that was left untouched, I believe. I like a training system existing in a game. I think it's really good. But again, I mean, they shouldn't have left it untouched. So you can only do it 5 times per level. They also do not advertise training at all. In fact, if you're new to Oblivion and you just started to play the remaster, you may not even know that the training mechanic exists. Some NPCs, usually vendors, will have this extra button next to the bartering button where you can train. It costs quite a bit of money, but money isn't really an issue past level 15 or so. If you just grind a couple of dungeons, sell the enchanted gear, you can make money very easily in this game, which is another thing I'll get to later. But anyway, the problem lies in the 5 times per level cap. So I got to level 23 or something, completely forgot that trainers existed, because I can't remember. I would have to Google constantly where my trainers are for the skills I want to train and then go get them, which is a bit of a chore. There's no in-game way of tracking it or remembering it. So I finally start training some skills, and then I realised that I've really been missing out on this, because as I mentioned earlier, some skills are just arbitrarily really annoying and grindy to level up, and the trainer system kind of tries to fix that problem, because if you don't want to spam an illusion spell 30 times just to level it up, because you're saying you can do training, you just every level you pay, you know, a few thousand gold and you can get 5 levels up, and that's a good way to balance off that system. The problem is, if you level up too quickly, you'll miss out on those 5 possible training level ups. You don't get them back. And so me at level 23, I've missed out on so many potential skill ups with these annoying skills. And it just makes me think, why was this not touched? Why not change this? I shouldn't have to, in order to be efficient, make sure I go visit a trainer. And what if I run out of money, which in the early game, by the way, you are going to struggle to get the money to get 5 training sessions done every level. What does that mean? Does that mean you just hold up, you just don't level up? You just don't progress and increase your attributes? Just don't level up until you can afford the training first? Like, what is that? That's bringing back efficient leveling. That was the bad part of the leveling system, and they recognised that. They recognised that efficient leveling is bad, and they fixed it. They left it in here, and it makes me think that they just didn't even notice. They didn't bother to check or think about it. Since we're on the topic of spending money, let's talk about the loot economy. So, as I mentioned a couple of times before, I think Oblivion has a lot of copy and paste dungeons. The dungeon design, it's not very unique. There is essentially 2 ways to play Oblivion. You play the quests, kind of like Skyrim, and you just play through that way. Or you can do dungeon grinding, which, to be fair, is a valid way of playing the game. There's nothing wrong with dungeon grinding. But it can get old, especially in the original, when the dungeons don't look as good in the original, right? So the dungeon grinding can definitely get boring. And why are you doing it? There's skill gain, leveling up, obviously. Talked all about leveling and all of that. There's also money, right? All games like this, you get loot. You sell the loot for money. And there is, of course, training. You buy training with the money, which is very optional, but that's a good money sink. And then nothing else. There is actually no real reason to get money. You buy houses. You can buy and then furnish the houses. And some of the DLC houses, which are built into the remaster, are actually quite good. So that's a little bit of money you can spend. And then there's a few items. So a lot of the vendors sell a unique enchanted item. Most of them aren't very good. A few of them are okay. Like Apotheosis from Rindia's staffs in the Imperial City. That does ridiculous damage. That's 99 points of magic damage. That's really cool. But altogether, all of the useful things you can buy outside of training is probably, what, like 20k? Something like that, depending on your mercantile skill. And just to give you an idea of what playing the game looks like and how much money you get, just look at how much gold I've got. And that's because once you get to a certain level, everyone starts dropping Daedric and glass equipment. So you can easily pick up loads of really valuable loot and then go sell it. And because gaining your mercantile skill, the skill gain is tied to the value of the things you sell, it will also hyper level up your mercantile. You'll quite quickly get to 100 mercantile, and at 100 you sell everything for its base price. So you can get ridiculously rich, ridiculously fast, past level 15, I'd say, which isn't too far into the game, really. But anyway, what's the point of being rich? The money just sits there, it doesn't do anything. So that's broken. There's no real money sinks aside from training, and even then, I mean, the money you're going to be spending on training, nowhere near as much as you're going to be earning. So that kind of doesn't work. Loot doesn't work. And also, money gain, especially in the early... This is a pet peeve of mine with Oblivion. If you're a thief just starting out, a lot of people start off in the Thieves' Guild, and you'll try and steal some silverware, or some silks, and you'll You know, something that is traditionally very valuable. And it has a value of 2. Makes no sense. The value of loot in this game is completely off. Robbing people's houses, which is something the Thieves Guild encourages, is useless. It's really useless. I tried, when I joined the Thieves Guild, breaking into all different types of houses, found very, very little loot. Theft doesn't work in Oblivion. It's broken. And instead, I just went to the blacksmiths in Bruma, broke open the cupboard, found enough stuff in there to do almost all of the Thieves Guild missions. You need in total 1,000 fenced gold to do all the Thieves Guild missions. I got about 600 from that one cupboard. So that doesn't work, and that's okay. It's a 2006 game. But this is the remaster. If something fundamentally doesn't work, this is an interesting question. I'm not sure I know the answer to it. If something fundamentally doesn't work, and you remaster the game and it still doesn't work, do you have a duty as the remasterer to fix that thing? Or is that outside the purview of your job? Well, it wasn't done either way. The persuasion skill is another example of this. Persuasion in Oblivion is a terrible minigame. It's the worst Bethesda minigame, I think. I don't like the science terminals in Fallout. I don't like them at all. I don't like digipicks in Starfield. But this is the worst. Thankfully, there's a bribe button that they still added in. The interface looks slightly differently. It functions exactly the same though. You can just spam the bribe button, spend a small amount of money in the grand scheme of things, and just cheat the system that way. It's useless. Why did they not rework it? They reworked the interface. Why not touch the system? They touched leveling. Why not this? Another thing, and I forgot to talk about this. I don't know how I forgot to talk about this because this is the worst thing. This is the worst change that Virtuous made in the remaster, and that's lockpicking. Now, a problem that lockpicking has is that its related skill, security, is useless. In my Oblivion playthrough, I did a month or so ago, the original Oblivion, I did lots of lockpicking, lots of very hard locks, and my security skill, because I was playing with Oblivion XP, I just didn't increase it. It stayed at, I think, 10. I think it stayed at 10. Because security is very useless. I've forgotten what it does. What it does is not important. You can complete the minigame, the lockpicking minigame, through skill alone. And there's something cool about that, but there is a problem of the security skill being useless. Now, Virtuous did solve that problem. The security skill is now useful. The problem is, it turns the lockpicking minigame into an RNG-based system, from my understanding. From my feel of playing with it, this is how I understand it works. So, in Oblivion, you have to push with the lockpick, you have to push the tumbler up to the top, and then you left click, or you press some other button, and it locks the tumbler into place. From my understanding, now in the remaster, the exact same thing happens, but even if the tumbler is in the perfect spot to lock into place, there is then a dice roll based off of your security skill as to whether it fails or not. And that turns this quite satisfying lockpicking system from the original into just pure frustration. It feels unfair. It's not fun. I hate lockpicking in the remaster. A lot of people don't like Oblivion's lockpicking anyway. What a lot of people do is they rush the Nocturnal quest. At level 10, the Daedric Prince Nocturnal, you can go to her shrine here on the map near Leowyn. You can go do a short quest for her. She gives you the skeleton key. If you played Skyrim, you might recognize that. It's an unbreakable lockpick. It means that once you have it, because the lockpick can't break, you can spam the auto attempt button, therefore skipping the entire minigame, similarly to how the bribe function skips the entire persuasion minigame. I rushed getting the skeleton key in the Oblivion remaster. As soon as I hit level 10, I went and got it. I'm usually not that kind of person. I usually don't want to skip the lockpicking mechanic. I think it's quite good. In the remaster, it's terrible. It needs some work. There are better ways you can have the security skill help your lockpicking experience. Maybe by making it so that lockpicks are more durable. That's the thing in Skyrim and Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4. I think there are other ways to make the security skill less useless and scale your lockpicking experience without turning lockpicking into an awful, frustrating mess. There are, of course, other things to touch on with Oblivion, like all of the quests, the narrative content, the stories. The problem is that because the difference between the original Oblivion and Oblivion Remastered, in a gameplay sense, in a content sense, there's very little there. It's essentially the original Oblivion. I don't want to go over it too much. I don't want to make a comprehensive Oblivion rant. You know, that's not off the table, but not today. So that's me talking about gameplay. But there is one big thing that I've not mentioned yet, and that's jank. It's an interesting topic because Oblivion is infamous for its jank. It's a big part of its charm. It's why it's endured so long, culturally, I guess. So it was definitely an interesting thing to think about before the remaster dropped, of how would a remaster handle the jank? Because a lot of people consider it to be a pillar of Oblivion. And it's clear they did think about it and did do something about it, and the results are interesting. So first off, take a look at this sprinting animation. It's amazing, isn't it? Look at him go. So this is probably the most stupid looking thing in the game, right? Some of the other animations are a bit weird as well. Sometimes people just walk around like they've shat themselves. Don't quite understand why. And though most of the faces in the game are okay, some of them are just really weird looking. Like, for example, I think the worst one is Jensine at the Market District in the Imperial City. She just creeps me out with her eyes and also how much her mouth can move. And this is all weird. I mean, it's weird because it's Oblivion, but it's also weird because the combat animations, for example, and basically all the other animations are really, really good. So functionally, I don't think there's any difference to combat in the remaster compared to the original. But the feel of it, and this is from the sound design as well, just the animations and the sounds are so good that even though you're doing the same thing in a gameplay sense, it's just so much more enjoyable. Also, when someone tries to power attack you with a big hammer or something, it just looks great. The animation's really, really good. It's really weird. Why are these so weird and goofy and these aren't? Because they obviously are very competent at making realistic animations. They just don't. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but I think these things were made to look stupid on purpose to make the game more memey. And I'm not sure I'm okay with that. Because sure, Oblivion is a very janky game, but it's also a competent RPG in its own right. The point of the game isn't to look derpy, that's just something people have noticed over the years as the game's become more and more outdated to modern standards. And the light-hearted, colourful atmosphere of the game pairs well with this innocent goofiness. But this isn't innocent goofiness, and it doesn't pair well with the game around it. Here's a question. Is it okay to purposefully sabotage your game, the user experience of the game you're selling, in order so that it looks funnier, so that it maybe performs better on social media? Because I've got a feeling that's what's happening, and I'm not sure I'm okay with that. I'm not sure I'm okay with my games being made to be worse on purpose so that it can be more memey. Right? That's weird. Is that even what's happening? I'm not sure, but I think it is. What do you think? I'm sure there are things that I've forgotten to talk about. This was a stream of consciousness rant, but I think I'm pretty much done. So let's get into the more technical stuff at the end. So first off, bugs and performance. I've only had one crash. I've been playing for like 30 hours now or something. One crash. I've had some annoying bugs. Nothing bad though. Nothing on the level of the original Oblivion. So there's that at least. Performance though, wow. I mean, I've got 32 gigs of RAM. Never really had to use those gigabytes. I bought it for video editing, which is what it does come in handy for that. But this is the first time I've used 32 gigs for gaming, and it's hungry. It uses nearly all of my RAM. Crazy. I've never seen that before. Then again, I don't play a lot of modern games, so there's that. So I've got 32 gigs of RAM and a 4070 NVIDIA graphics card. It is quite demanding, and it's relying on the crutch of AI-based techniques like DLSS and FrameGen. I'm using those to make the game run properly. I have DLSS on quality mode though, otherwise it gets too blurry, but it's okay at quality. So performance is good for me, but that's only because I've got kind of a powerful bit of hardware, meaning that if you're an old Oblivion fan and you like those older RPGs, chances are you may not even play modern games and therefore can't even run this, which is a bit annoying. But I can't comment on it too much just because I've not had that problem, right? And if you don't care about graphics too much anyway, you know, if graphics isn't a deciding factor for you, then you're left with the gameplay, and the gameplay is the same as vanilla Oblivion, so probably not for you anyway, frankly. And that's what it comes down to, really. It's a beautiful piece of eye candy. It's amazing looking, but if you're not into the newest graphical stuff, if you don't value graphics, there's no difference between this and the original. If you tried to play Oblivion before but bounced off the experience, I'm not sure how much the remaster is going to help you with that problem. You may have been able to work this out a bit from the stuff I've previously ranted about in this video, but it's clear to most people who've played loads of Oblivion over the years that Oblivion was fundamentally, it just wasn't given the time in the oven it needed before launch. It is a unfinished game with problems that I believe just barely received any playtesting whatsoever. The original Oblivion just wasn't ready to be launched when it did, and it's great in its own ways. There's a reason it's so famous in gaming, in RPGs, but it wasn't quite there yet when it got launched, and it never got to that point. And the remaster doesn't finish it either. Now, I'm not mad about Oblivion not being finished because the game is from 2006. A game like this, a modern release of Oblivion that is clearly still the same, not very well finished, half-baked product, that's a bit strange, isn't it? It has really, really beautiful modern graphics, but does the gameplay match up to that? No, it doesn't. And that's okay, I guess. It's Oblivion, but I don't know, there's something missing there. Isn't there a bit of a moral imperative to where if you're remastering a game that obviously didn't get properly playtested, in your rendition of that game, are you just going to go that extra way and just playtest it a bit? Because it seems to be having a lot of the same problems as the original Oblivion. Some things in it just don't quite click in its sandbox. And here's another thing. No modding support. Officially, there was a statement, I think it was on the Bethesda forums, that there is no official mod support for this game. Now, that's had no effect on Nexus mods. Loads of people are publishing mods. But does that mean that in the long term, Oblivion Remastered is going to get a script extender? Is there going to be a modding community around Oblivion Remastered to the extent of the other Elder Scrolls games? What's that going to look like? Long term, the reason we still love Elder Scrolls so much is because the modding community keeps it alive. Vanilla Bethesda games aren't great, we all know that, they're not perfect. It's what you can turn them into that's so amazing, that creates some of the best experiences in video games. If that's not going to happen with Oblivion Remastered, how long is it before people go back to the original? How long is it before I go back to the original? Next time I get in the mood to play Oblivion, am I going to play this? Or am I going to play the original because it's still got Oblivion XP, it's still got Darnified UI, and all these other content mods? And that's a really interesting question. Short term, the hype for this game is huge. Long term, is this going to be forgotten? And don't forget, later this year, and this is something I've somehow managed to not touch on yet, Sky Oblivion is out. There will, at the end of this year, probably, be 3 Oblivions. Which one's going to survive? I feel like, even though I've not played it, Sky Oblivion is poised in a much better position than Oblivion Remastered, because it actively wants to solve these problems. The copy and paste dungeons, the very generic dungeon design in Oblivion, well, that's going to be fixed because Sky Oblivion is redesigning all the dungeons, and what we've seen so far looks amazing. It's essentially, from my understanding, got Skyrim's leveling system, so that's a lot of the problems in Oblivion fixed. And of course, because it's set in Skyrim's engine, it comes with the very heavy mod support. I'm assuming a lot of mods for Skyrim will quickly be ported over to Sky Oblivion because it's the same game. It will just need a bit of work, a little bit of extra patching to make it work. One last thing I want to talk about is the pricing. Now, initially, during the time of all of the leaks, I was thinking that I'll pay £30, probably not much more. If they try and charge full game price for a remaster, I'm going to be a little bit salty. And then, as soon as I saw the gameplay, I saw how ridiculously gorgeous it looked. And thought, okay, no, I'll pay full price for that. The amount of effort that's gone into that is crazy. And that's true. The amount of effort that's gone into the visual overhaul of that remaster is crazy. Subconsciously though, I think I assumed that the gameplay would have had an equal amount of effort put into it to modernize it than the graphics. I would have assumed that it was remastered in more than just a visual sense. And so in hindsight, I'm not sure £50 is worth it really. Now, if you were keen-eyed, you probably saw at the start of the video when I mentioned Shadowmere's eyes that my Shadowmere has horse armor on, and that's because I did buy the deluxe edition. I know, it's terrible. Clap me in irons and take me away, right? It wasn't because of anything in the deluxe edition, because frankly, I didn't even look. Todd got me in that moment. It was in a moment of weakness. He stole my money, and I just bought the deluxe edition out of some really pathetic fanboyism. But now I've logged a load of hours in the game, and I've now played through at least the first half of the digital deluxe content. I do have a bit of an opinion on the digital deluxe upgrade, which is an extra £10. I do think that the deluxe edition is pretty cool. The base price of the game, I think, is a bit unreasonable, but the deluxe edition is quite a good purchase, really. And this is not because of the horse armor, right? The in-game digital content doesn't really interest me, it's just cosmetic. Now, there is a bit of a gameplay aspect to it, because the two gear sets you can get have their own quest lines associated with them, small quest lines. And once done, you can at any time retrieve new copies of these armor sets and weapon sets, and those copies will scale with your level. So you've got something that you wouldn't have otherwise, and that's an armor set that will forever scale with you. Now, me personally, I did lots of dungeon grinding. I've got some good enchanted gear, so I never really have used this. You know, I did the quest, thought, oh, that stuff looks cool, and then I stopped using it. But if you just play through some quest lines, and you don't really care about gearing, you just want to play through the narrative content, and you want gear that will upgrade with you, from a gameplay perspective, they're really useful. I'm at level 25, something like that, and the light armor sets have the same armor rating as glass armor, and in the base game at least, glass armor is the best armor. So as long as you don't care about enchanting, this is just like best in slot gear that matches your level at all levels. But anyway, the reason why I actually like the deluxe edition is because of the art book. There is a 5 GB art book you get, and the art in there is amazing. Now, for some reason, I've not found a way to extract those files. Like, I really want a lot of those pictures on my desktop, and I can't do that for some reason. I'll have to work out a way. But if you enjoy art books, if you like the arty, the concept art side, which is something I personally really appreciate, £10 for an art book of one of my favourite games of all time, that's worth it to me, frankly. Though one final nitpick, right? On Steam, on the advertisement for the deluxe edition, it says includes Shivering Isles and Knights of the Nine and etc. And all of the DLCs for Oblivion are built into the base game. But this banner, this advertisement, makes it look as if you need the deluxe edition to have the DLC. Am I the only one that thinks that? It gives the wrong impression to me. It seems like false advertising. Oh, and of course, pricing aside, most people playing this game just bought a month of Game Pass, so there's that to consider as well. Okay, so I spent most of the video complaining about the game, and that gives off a bad impression as to my overall opinion. Just as if you watch the first 10 or so minutes, you'd think that I adore everything about this game. The truth is somewhere in the middle. The reason I'm complaining about the game so much is because I love it. I've been having loads of fun in this game. I'm really impressed with the graphics, and though Oblivion does have its problems, and Oblivion Remastered is, from a gameplay standpoint, functionally Oblivion, it is still an amazing game, right? But that's enough about me. I'm really interested to see what other people have to say about this, so please leave a comment if you're interested in giving your opinion. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like on it. If you have something to say, please leave a comment. If you liked me, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to engage with me more often, there is the Discord server. And if you're watching this on the night of its launch, I'm probably on Twitch playing Oblivion Remastered right now. If you want to engage with me live, you can do that over there. And another thank you to my YouTube members Morrowind, Nightseeker, Patrick Manhora, Lewis H, Lurend, Cherish, Miffy, Hydroxyl, Edward Russell Duck, Darkow, XPM Dobro Cortez, AC, Sad Scarecrow, marked as red, Jerry Freeman, Daniel Owens, What the Fuck, Gaming Piper, Surfrock, James Goldtrap, Emma to the Max, AIDS Mort, and Belasting Briefbus. Thanks guys, and sorry if I pronounced your names wrong. Bye bye.